Hello YouTubers, this is my first video about a camcorder, specifically a Hitachi DZHV593E, also known as the Hitachi C35, a budget high definition camcorder. This is not an in-depth description of every feature, neither is a full review, but it's a brief overview. Followed by a description of the fundamental faults of this camcorder. A quick look at the specifications and you'll be forgiven for thinking this is a good camcorder. Those specifications include full high definition recording, 1080p. It has a 5 megapixel sensor. It got 10 times optical zoom. It can take SD, SDHC memory cards. It recognises AVI, MP4, MOV file formats. The stills are 60 megapixel. The modes are various. There's an intelligent scene mode, white balance options, macro mode, and time-lapse recording, slow motion recording, face detection, motion detection, and there's a light and digital light, and it supports cards up to 64 gigabytes. So yeah, having read that, you think, well, this is a nice camcorder. Starting from the front, there's a thread there for accepting an external lens or a filter. There's a microphone. There's the light as a LED light. Underneath you have the battery cover here. It's enclosed battery. There's no option I can find where you can fit a longer life battery. There's a memory card. From the side, if I open the panel, this is a touchscreen panel. You have a speaker here, the on-off button, there's a pause button, there's a digital light button. We move to the rear. We have a flap that when you open reveals the ports. There's a HDMI and mini USB port. There's a record button. There's the indicator light. Going to the top, we have the zoom, 10 times. A still shot button. Oh, a tripod mount. So that's it. It's pretty compact. So it looks like a fairly sleek, compact camcorder. It has been built to the budget, and that's fairly obvious. I mean, it's got this slightly tacky, plasticky feel to it. There is a smooth, rubberized grip. But yes, it's definitely a cheap budget camcorder. Here in the UK, they go for anything from £100 to £140, £150, which for a definition of that rating, with those listed features, seems a bargain. Then you start to use it and you realise when you play your footage back it's not such good value. The first thing to note is the audio, or rather lack of it, through this directional microphone. When I've recorded myself speaking in the past, like I am now, from behind the camera, the resulting audio is very quiet, and I've had to increase it in post-production, which results in it being very hissy, which is confusing because I've seen this camcorder, or rather heard this camcorder in various YouTube clips, and the audio hasn't been particularly quiet. But when I've read through the comments, I've realised the person who recorded the video had to increase the audio in post-production as well. So there's obviously a flaw here, not unique to my camera. It's not faulty. Further usage and playing around with it shows the microphone here to be very directional. Sounding events in front of the camcorder, anything here, can be recorded. Not brilliantly, but you know they can be heard. But if you're behind the camera and speaking, if you're going to record yourself in a vlog or vlog, forget about it effectively, unless you're going to muck around with it in post-production. Speaking of audio, there's no wind reduction option, and I've gone through the menus in this, every last option. Okay, so we've established the audio isn't good. It seems you can only get acceptable audio if the event is loud, in front of the microphone, and not winding, unless you change it in post-production. So what's a video like? Well, good if it's bright. So if it's bright indoors, or you're outdoors, and it's not particularly windy, and you want to choose various options to maximise what you're recording, there are quite a few available. To get to them, we have to go through the menu options. There's very few buttons to select to aid quick access to the options that you want. This is done to keep costs down, obviously, but to get to the options, and they are logically structured in the menu, so there's no problem there. But yeah, see my big fingers on a touch screen ain't great. So they're logically structured, but to get to the particular stuff that you want can be a bit of a faff. And by the time you have got the camera set up for the scene that you want to record, you might well have missed it. There you go. Where does it lack particularly when recording stuff? Well, low light level conditions. If you want to record something in anything other than bright conditions, well, good luck with that. There's no infrared, which I wouldn't necessarily expect on a low-end high-definition recorder. The options available to you to maximise low-level light filming are nighttime scene and digital light, unless you want to use the LED light. But even with everything maximised, the nighttime low light level type filming on this is at best a poor substitute for most other camcorders, even in this price range. Are there other areas of concern when videoing events on this camcorder? Yes, there's no image stabilization. I wouldn't necessarily expect optical, but some form of digital stabilization should really be present. The irony of it is that if you look at various adverts on the web, there are a few floating around saying it has digital stabilization. Well, in the instructions on the box and in every single menu option, and I've gone through them all, there's no mention of that. So either it's very poor digital image stabilization, or it's not present, and somehow it's got misconstrued in the advertising, which is possible. I mean, recently I've been playing around with some CCTV cameras, and Tenvis have released a range of cameras all advertised as having microphones, and I bought one as a test, and sure enough it didn't have a microphone, and I got back to the supplier, and they swore blind that it did. I returned it to them, and they realised it doesn't have any microphone, and they're annoyed with the manufacturer. There's a whole bunch of cameras now that in their range advertise as having microphones, and it's unknown how many do have them. So these mistakes that crop up in advertising aren't as rare as one might think. So what do we have? A high definition camcorder, which is attractively priced, but with some fundamental flaws which make it usable only in a few specific conditions. Forget about vlogging, forget about talking from behind the camcorder, forget about recording audio in anything other than good, that means non-windy weather. The lack of sensitivity to low light conditions I can overlook at this price point for a high definition camcorder. I mean, some compromises have to be made. It's a trade-off you might expect and accept, but the lack of stabilization, image stabilization, is, well, unforgivable really. I mean, I wouldn't expect optical stabilization, but I would expect some form of digital stabilization, and from what I can tell, there isn't any. If there is any, it's not described in any of the literature that came with the camera. It's not in any of the options, and if it is present, not only is it hidden, it's hopeless. So really, one to avoid. And to illustrate my point, some example video clips with text descriptions follows.